The bedroom door swung open with a force that shook the hinges, and Chidi Okonkwo stood frozen in the doorway of his own home in Victoria Island, Lagos, staring at a sight that shattered his world into 1,000 jagged pieces. His wife, Amara, was tangled in their marital bed with his business partner, Tun Bakare, their bodies intertwined in a way that left no room for misinterpretation. The silk sheets he'd bought her for their 10th anniversary were pooled on the floor like discarded promises. What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from. Chidi. Amara's scream pierced the air as she scrambled to cover herself, her flawless dark skin glistening with guilt and sweat. Tun didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. Instead, he smirked, reaching casually for his boxers as if he'd just been caught eating the last piece of meat from the pot, not destroying a decade-long marriage. How long? Chidi's voice came out strangled, barely recognizable to his own ears. His hands trembled at his sides, fists clenching and unclenching. How long have you been sleeping with my partner? In my house? In my bed? Amara wrapped the bedsheet around her body, her full lips quivering. Chidi, please. 3 days later, Chidi sat in his lawyer's cramped office in Surulere, the humidity making his shirt stick to his back despite the laboring ceiling fan. Barrister Emeka Nwankwo spread the documents across his cluttered desk, his reading glasses perched on his nose as he examined the evidence of Chidi's destruction. This is bad, Chidi. Very bad, Emeka muttered, shaking his head. His gray beard made him look older than his 55 years. These forged signatures are professional quality. And the timing of the transactions aligns with days you were traveling. They've built a solid case against you. Chidi leaned back in the plastic chair, exhaustion weighing down his every movement. He hadn't slept since walking in on Amara and Tund. His children were staying with Amara's mother, and every time he called, 7-year-old Kalechi asked when Daddy was coming home. How could he explain that Mommy was trying to make sure Daddy never came home again? What about the divorce? Chidi asked, his voice hoarse. What about my kids? Emeka removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose in a gesture that told Chidi everything he needed to know before the lawyer even spoke. Amara's legal team is ruthless. They're painting you as a thief, a man so consumed by greed that you stole from your own company. They're arguing you're morally unfit to have custody. The financial crimes charge. The private clinic in Ikoyi was quiet and sterile, a stark contrast to the chaos of Lagos outside. Chidi sat in the waiting room, having paid the deposit for the woman's treatment with money he could barely afford to spend. His bank accounts were being drained by legal fees, and Amara had already frozen their joint accounts, leaving him scrambling. Yet something about the woman's distress had compelled him to help. Have you ever helped a stranger who later changed your life? Hit like if you believe in karma and comment where you're watching from. After 30 minutes, a nurse called him back. The woman was sitting on an examination table, her torn clothes replaced with clean hospital scrubs. Her headscarf had been removed, revealing short natural hair streaked with gray. With her face cleaned and composed, she looked different, dignified, authoritative even. There was something familiar about her features, but Chidi couldn't place it. The doctor says nothing is broken, just bruised ribs, she told him, her voice stronger now. Thank you for bringing me here. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stopped. Chidi waved off her thanks. Anyone would have done the same. No, she said firmly, holding his gaze. They wouldn't have. I've learned that the hard way today. She paused, seeming to wrestle with something internally. My name is Judge Adeyemi. The name hit Chidi like a physical blow. Adeyemi. Judge Adeyemi. The judge who would hear his custody case. The judge who held his future in her hands. His face must have shown his shock because her expression shifted to one of recognition. You know who I am, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. You're the judge. My case. The custody hearing. Chidi stood up abruptly, his mind reeling. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know it was you. Judge Adeyemi watched him carefully, her legal mind clearly assessing the situation. Sit down, Mr. Okonkwo. Chidi Okonkwo. He sat, his heart pounding. Would she think this was some elaborate scheme? Would she recuse herself from his case? Would she punish him for this perceived manipulation? Mr. Okonkwo, she said slowly, I reviewed your case file this morning. I know about the allegations against you, the embezzlement, the marital infidelity your wife is claiming, the questions about your fitness as a parent. She paused, studying him with eyes that had judged countless people in her 20 years on the bench. And now I find myself in a rather unusual position. You've just helped me at considerable personal expense, not knowing who I was. That says something about character. I should go, Chidi said, standing again. This is inappropriate. You're my judge. I shouldn't be here. Sit down, she said again, this time with the authority of her position. What happened today doesn't change the facts of your case. I still don't know if you're guilty or innocent of the charges against you. What I do know is that you showed compassion when you had no obligation to do so. She leaned forward, her dark eyes intense. Tell me, Mr. Okonkwo, are you guilty of what they're accusing you of? Chidi met her gaze directly. No, Your Honor. My wife and my business partner set me up. They've been having an affair for 6 months, and they've forged documents to make it look like I stole from my own company. They want to take everything from me. The rain hammered against the windows of Chidi's cramped hotel room in Yaba, where he'd been staying since being forced out of his own home. It was a far cry from the spacious house in Victoria Island, but at least here he could think without being surrounded by memories of betrayal. For 5 days straight, he'd been working his phone, calling in favors, reaching out to old contacts in the construction industry, trying to find anything that could expose Tund and Amara's conspiracy. Ever felt like you were fighting a battle with your hands tied? Hit like if you felt this kind of frustration, and comment where you're watching from. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Nkechi, Amara's younger sister, had always been close to Chidi. Unlike her older sister, Nkechi was straightforward and honest, with traditional values that clashed with Amara's increasingly materialistic worldview. When she called late on that rainy Thursday evening, Chidi almost didn't answer, expecting another family member calling to berate him for the financial crimes Amara was spreading rumors about. Brother Chidi, Nkechi's voice was hushed, urgent. I need to see you. Tonight. There's something you need to know about Amara and Tund. They met at a small bukka in Suralere, far from the eyes of Amara's social circle. Nkechi arrived wearing a simple Ankara dress, her natural hair pulled back, her face troubled. She ordered nothing, just sat across from Chidi with her hands clasped tightly on the plastic table. I should have told you sooner, she began, guilt heavy in her voice. I knew something was wrong. I saw signs, but Amara is my sister, and I. She stopped, gathering courage. I was at their mother's house last week, helping with the children. Kelechi was crying, saying he missed you. Adiz wouldn't eat. And Amara, she was on the phone with Tund, talking about you like you were nothing. Like you were just an obstacle to remove. Chidi's jaw tightened. What did she say? She said, once the judge rules, we'll have everything. The company will be ours, the house, the children. Chidi will be lucky if he's not in prison. And then she laughed, Chidi. She laughed. Nkechi's eyes filled with tears. This is not the sister I grew up with. Money and that man have changed her into someone I don't recognize. Did you hear anything specific? Anything that could prove they forged those documents? Chidi leaned forward desperately. Nkechi shook her head. Not exactly. But I know where Tund keeps his files. He has a private office in his house in Lekki. Amara mentioned it once, said he keeps all his important business documents there, locked in a safe. She pulled out her phone, showing Chidi a photo. I took this last month when I visited. It's the code to his gate. Amara gave it to me in case of emergency. Chidi stared at the numbers, his mind racing with possibilities and dangers. Breaking into Tund's house would be illegal. If he got caught, it would destroy any chance he had in court. But if there was evidence there, proof of the forgery and conspiracy, it could save everything. Why are you helping me? He asked Nkechi. She's your sister. Because you're a good man, Chidi. You've always treated me with respect, helped pay for my education when Amara refused. And those children, Kelechi and Adiz, they deserve their father. What Amara is doing is evil, and I can't stand by and watch it anymore. She reached across the table, squeezing his hand. Whatever you decide to do, be careful. Tund is dangerous, and Amara will destroy anyone who gets in her way, even family. After Nkechi left, Chidi sat in the bukka for another hour, watching the rain and wrestling with his conscience. He'd always been a man who followed the rules, who believed in justice and proper channels. But the system was failing him. The evidence was manufactured, the victim was being punished, and the guilty were about to. Got it, Obinna whispered as the safe clicked open. Inside were stacks of files, USB drives, and documents. Chidi began pulling them out, his hands shaking as he photographed everything with his phone, bank statements showing Tund's hidden accounts, emails between Tund and Amara planning the betrayal in explicit detail, the original documents before they'd been forged with Chidi's signature. It was all there. Every piece of evidence he needed to prove the conspiracy, to expose the domestic betrayal and infidelity that had destroyed his marriage and nearly destroyed his life. We need to go, Obinna urged. We've been here too long. But as they turned to leave, the lights blazed on. Standing in the doorway, with a gun pointed directly at Chidi's chest, was Tund Bakare. And behind him, smiling with venomous satisfaction, was Amara. Breaking and entering, Chidi? Tund's voice was mock sympathetic. And here I thought you couldn't sink any lower. This is going to look very bad in court. Very bad indeed. Oh no. What happens next? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Comment below what you think Chidi should do now. Where are you watching from? Share this video with someone who loves dramatic plot twists. Time seemed to freeze as Chidi stared down the barrel of Tun's gun. The weapon gleamed under the office lights, steady in his former partner's hand. Amara stood behind Tund, her face twisted with triumph, and Chidi realized with sickening clarity that this wasn't a coincidence. They'd known he would come. This was a trap. You really thought we wouldn't anticipate this? Amara's voice dripped with contempt. She stepped forward, wearing silk pajamas that probably cost more than Chidi's hotel room. Nkechi called me right after she met with you. Did you think my own sister would betray me for you? She was bait, Chidi. And you took it like the desperate fool you are. The betrayal within betrayal hit Chidi like a physical blow. Nkechi had seemed so genuine, so troubled by her sister's actions. But she'd been part of the plan all along, drawing him into this trap. How deep did this conspiracy go? How many people had been poisoned against him? Put the phone down, Tund ordered, gesturing with the gun toward Chidi's phone, which still held all the photographic evidence. Slowly. Any sudden moves and I'll shoot. Self-defense, of course. A man breaking into my home in the middle of the night. Any judge would understand. Even Judge Adeyemi? The words left Chidi's mouth before he could stop them. He saw Amara's eyes narrow with interest. What about Judge Adeyemi? She demanded. Chidi said nothing, but his mind was racing. Obinna had melted into the shadows near the bookshelf, unnoticed for the moment. If Chidi could keep them talking, keep them focused on him, maybe his friend could find a way out, get help, something. Tund stepped closer, his expensive cologne cloying in the air. You've made this so much easier for us, Chidi. First, you assault me in front of witnesses when I was only trying to reason with you about the divorce. Then you harass Amara's family. And now, breaking into my home, trying to steal documents. The pattern is clear, you're unstable, dangerous, unfit to be around children. Those photos I just took prove everything, Chidi said, trying to buy time. They show the real bank accounts, the forged signatures, the emails where you two planned all of this. Even if you take my phone, I've already backed them up. They're in the cloud, sent to my lawyer. It was a lie, but a convincing one. He watched Tund's confidence flicker, just for a moment. Amara laughed, but there was nervousness in it now. You're lying. You just took those photos. There's been no time to send anything. Are you sure? Chidi challenged. In this age of automatic backups and cloud storage? Can you really take that chance? Tund's hand tightened on the gun. Give me the phone. Now. That's when the lights went out. Obinna had found the main breaker. In the sudden darkness, Chidi lunged sideways, rolling behind Tund's heavy desk as a gunshot exploded through the room. The sound was deafening, and Chidi felt the bullet was past his head, embedding itself in the wall. Amara screamed, and there was chaos, footsteps, shouting, another shot. Chidi, run. Obinna's voice came from somewhere in the darkness. Chidi didn't need to be told twice. He scrambled toward where he remembered the door being, his phone clutched in his hand like a lifeline. Behind him, Tund was shouting, trying to find the light switch. Chidi burst into the hallway, nearly colliding with Obinna, and together they raced down the stairs. Police! Someone call the police! Amara's voice shrieked from above. There are robbers in the house! They made it out through the side door they'd entered, running across the compound as lights began flicking on in neighboring houses. The rain had started again, heavy and concealing, and they used it as cover, racing through the estate streets until they reached Obinna's car parked 3 blocks away. That was insane, Obinna gasped as they sped away from Lekki. He actually shot at you. That man is crazy. Chidi was shaking, adrenaline and fear coursing through his veins. His shirt was soaked with rain and sweat, and his heart felt like it might burst from his chest. But he had his phone. He had the evidence. The question was, would it be enough to overcome the fact that he'd obtained it illegally? Take me to Barrister Emeka's house, Chidi said, checking his phone. The photos were all there, clear and damning. We need to figure out what to do with this before they spin the story. But even as they drove through Lagos's rain-slicked streets, Chidi knew the situation had escalated beyond what he'd imagined. Tund had fired a gun at him. They'd set an elaborate trap involving Nkechi's false betrayal. These weren't people playing games anymore, they were people willing to kill to protect their lives. By morning, the story had already hit social media. Amara had crafted her narrative carefully. Her estranged husband, facing serious criminal charges, had broken into his former business partner's home in a desperate attempt to destroy evidence. He'd attacked Tund, who'd been forced to defend himself. The police were looking for Chidi Okonkwo for retrial. Continue. breaking and entering, assault, and attempted theft. Chidi watched the story spread across Facebook and Twitter, his name trending in Lego circles, his reputation being shredded in real time. Friends he'd known for years were sharing Amara's posts, expressing shock and disappointment. "I never knew Chidi was capable of this," one comment read. "His poor wife and children, having to deal with such a violent man." The irony was suffocating. The real criminals were being painted as victims, while he, the actual victim, was being hunted by the police. Barrister Emeka sat across from him in his living room, examining the photos on Chidi's phone with increasing excitement. "This is it, Chidi. This is everything we need. The forged signatures are clearly different from your actual signature. The email chain between Amara and Tund is explicit about their planning. The bank statements show where the money really went." He looked up, his eyes bright. "This proves the conspiracy, the financial fraud, everything. But I obtained it illegally," Chidi said hollowly. "By breaking into Tund's house. Won't that make it inadmissible in court?" Emeka's excitement dimmed. "In a criminal trial, yes. But this is family court, civil proceedings. The rules are different. The judge has more discretion about what evidence to consider, especially when it pertains to the welfare of children." He set down the phone. "Mr. Okonkwo." Judge Adeyemi's voice was stern, all business. "I've been following the news this morning. I assume you know there's a warrant out for your arrest?" "Your Honor, I can explain." "I don't want explanations over the phone," she cut him off. "I want you in my chambers at the courthouse in 2 hours. Bring your lawyer and bring whatever evidence you allegedly obtained last night." "And Mr. Okonkwo?" "If you're not there, I'll assume everything your wife is saying about you is true, and I'll rule accordingly. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor. I'll be there." "One more thing," she added, her voice softening slightly. "There's a back entrance to the courthouse, through the parking garage. Use it. The front is already crawling with reporters and police who've been tipped off that you might show up. Someone wants you arrested before you can present your evidence." The line went dead. Chidi looked at Emeka, who'd heard enough of the conversation to understand. "She's giving you a chance," the lawyer said. "But it's a narrow one. If those photos don't convince her, you'll walk out of that courthouse in handcuffs." 2 hours later, Chidi sat in Judge Adeyemi's private chambers, his lawyer beside him. The judge sat behind her desk, her face unreadable as she examined the photos on Chidi's phone, which he'd transferred to a tablet for easier viewing. She took her time, reading every email, scrutinizing every document, comparing the forged signatures to samples of Chidi's real signature that Emeka had brought. The silence stretched until Chidi wanted to scream. His future, his children's future, hung on what this woman decided in the next few minutes. Outside the window, Lagos hummed with its usual chaos, indifferent to the drama playing out in this small room. Finally, Judge Adeyemi set down the tablet and looked at Chidi with eyes that had seen every kind of human behavior in her decades on the bench. "Mr. Okonkwo, you broke into someone's home. You committed a crime, regardless of your justification. Do you understand that?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you put yourself and your friend in danger. That man fired a gun at you. You could have been killed. Was this evidence worth your life?" Chidi met her gaze steadily. "My children are my life, Your Honor. Without them, I have nothing. So yes, it was worth the risk." She nodded slowly, as if that answer confirmed something for her. "The evidence you've provided is compelling. The email chain alone proves conspiracy to commit fraud and perjury. The bank statements show clear financial misconduct. And the signature analysis will show forgery." She paused. "But here's the problem, your wife and Mr. Bakare will argue you fabricated all of this. They'll claim you're a skilled fraudster who created these documents to frame them. Without the originals, without being able to prove these came from Mr. Bakare's safe, it's your word against theirs." Chidi's heart sank. Even with the evidence, he was losing. But Judge Adeyemi wasn't finished. "However, there's something your wife and her accomplice didn't anticipate. I have jurisdiction in this case, and I have broad powers to investigate matters that affect the welfare of children. I'm ordering an immediate forensic audit of your company's finances, to be conducted by an independent accounting firm of my choosing. I'm also ordering both you and Mr. Bakare to provide handwriting samples and submit to signature verification analysis. And I'm granting you temporary supervised visitation with your children, effective immediately." Chidi felt tears prick his eyes. "Thank you, Your Honor." "Don't thank me yet," she warned. "This audit will examine your finances just as thoroughly as Mr. Bakare's. If you're guilty of anything, I'll find it. And regarding the breaking and entering, I'm suspending the warrant temporarily, but that doesn't make it go away. You'll still have to answer for that, though I suspect once the forensic evidence comes out, the prosecutor may have different priorities." She stood, signaling the meeting was over. But as Chidi and Emeka rose to leave, she added one more thing. Mr. Okonkwo, the preliminary hearing is in 9 days. The forensic audit will take at least 2 weeks. I'm going to postpone the hearing by 1 week to give the auditors time to provide a preliminary report. Use that time wisely. See your children. Be the father you claim to be. Because when we reconvene in that courtroom, everything will be decided. As Chidi left through the back entrance of the courthouse, avoiding the media circus at the front, he felt something he hadn't felt in weeks: hope. It was fragile and terrifying, because hope could be destroyed so easily. But Judge Adeyemi had given him a chance, had seen through the lies enough to demand the truth. His phone buzzed with a message from Amara. You think you've won something? You haven't. By the time I'm done with you, you'll wish you'd never been born. The children will hate you. Everyone will hate you. You're finished. The venom in those words revealed something important. Amara was scared. The trap had failed. The evidence existed. And now she was lashing out, desperate to maintain control of the narrative she'd so carefully constructed. Chidi replied with just 6 words, "The truth always comes out eventually." But even as he sent it, he wondered if that was true. Because in 9 days, he'd be standing in a courtroom, his entire future on the line, facing 2 people who'd already proven they would do anything, lie, cheat, steal, even kill, to get what they wanted. This is getting so intense. Do you think Chidi will get justice? Hit that like button and subscribe for more. Comment below what you think Amara will do next, and share this with anyone who loves courtroom drama. Where are you watching from? The Supervised Visitation Center in Ikeja was a cheerful place designed to make difficult situations feel less traumatic: colorful walls, toys scattered about, children's laughter echoing from other rooms. But for Chidi, walking through those doors felt like entering a battlefield where his children were the casualties. Have you ever had to fight for time with people you love? Hit like if this hits home, and comment where you're watching from. Kelechi and Adiz sat on a small couch, a social worker named Mrs. Okafor hovering nearby. When they saw Chidi, their reaction split his heart in 2. 7-year-old Kelechi's face lit up with pure joy, and he jumped up shouting, "Daddy." But 5-year-old Adiz hesitated, confusion clouding her beautiful features. Someone had been poisoning her mind against him. Chidi knelt down as Kelechi crashed into him, small arms wrapping around his neck with desperate tightness. "Daddy, why did you go away? Mommy said you did bad things." "But you didn't, right? You didn't do bad things?" The question, asked with such innocent faith, nearly broke Chidi's composure. "No, son. I didn't do bad things. Daddy would never do anything to hurt you or your sister. I love you more than anything in the world." Adiz approached slowly, her thumb in her mouth, a habit she'd broken a year ago but had apparently regressed to. "Mommy says you're a thief. She says you stole money and now we have to live with Grandma." Chidi's jaw clenched. Amara was using the children as weapons, filling their heads with lies, creating confusion and fear where there should be love and security. This was emotional manipulation at its cruelest, turning his own children against him. "Adiz, baby girl, come here." He opened his arms, and after a moment's hesitation, she came to him. He held both his children, breathing in their scent, feeling their small bodies against his, and silently vowed that he would fight until his last breath to protect them from the poison Amara was spreading. They spent the next hour playing games, reading stories, doing all the normal father-children things that had been stolen from them by betrayal and conspiracy. Mrs. Okafor watched silently, taking notes that would become part of the court record. Chidi was careful to be patient, loving, appropriate, aware that everything he did was being evaluated and judged. But toward the end of the visit, Kelechi said something that changed everything. They were building with blocks when his son mentioned casually, "Uncle Tun bought Mommy a big ring. She wears it at home but takes it off when she goes out. She says it's a secret." Chidi's hand stilled on the blocks. "A ring? What kind of ring, Kelechi?" "A pretty one, with a big stone. Mommy said Uncle Tun gave it to her because he loves her. They kiss a lot when they think we're not looking." Kelechi made a disgusted face. "It's gross." Mrs. Okafor had perked up at this, her pen moving quickly across her notepad. This was significant, proof that the relationship between Amara and Tund wasn't just an affair but something more serious. And if they were essentially living together, essentially playing house while the divorce was pending, it spoke to their level of commitment to each other and their conspiracy. "Did Uncle Tund give you anything?" Chidi asked gently. "Any presents or special treats?" Both children nodded enthusiastically. "He bought us iPads," Adiz said, her earlier suspicion forgotten in the excitement of talking about new toys. "And he said when Mommy divorces you, we're going to move to a big new house and he'll be our new daddy." The words hit Chidi like a physical assault. Tund wasn't just destroying him financially and legally, he was trying to replace him entirely. This was about erasing him from his children's lives, making them forget he existed, or worse, remember him only as the bad man who'd done bad things. After the visit ended and Chidi had said his tearful goodbyes, Mrs. Okafor pulled him aside. She was a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes that had seen too much family trauma. "Mr. Okonkwo, I'm required to be impartial, but I've been doing this for 20 years. What your children just described, the inappropriate exposure to your wife's relationship, the attempts to replace you, the negative comments about you, these are classic signs of parental alienation. It's a form of child abuse. Will you include that in your report?" Chidi asked hopefully. "I will include my observations, yes. But you should know that parental alienation is difficult to prove, and courts are often reluctant to act on it unless it's severe." She paused. "However, the ring your son mentioned, the cohabitation with Mr. Bakar, that could be relevant to the judge's decisions about custody and the divorce settlement. If your wife is representing herself as still married to you while essentially living with another man, that's problematic on several levels." Chidi thanked her and left the visitation center with his mind racing. The ring. The cohabitation. The children's statements. These were pieces of evidence he could use, but he needed more. He needed to prove that Amara and Tun's relationship had started before the separation, that they'd been planning this for months, that the affair was real and ongoing. He called Emeka immediately. "I need a private investigator. Someone who can document Amara and Tun's relationship, get photos, track their movements." "That's expensive, Chidi. And we're already stretched thin with the legal fees and the forensic audit." "I don't care. Sell my car if you have to. I need this evidence." Chidi's voice was steel. "They're poisoning my children against me. They're trying to erase me from their lives. I won't let that happen." Over the next 8 days, while waiting for the postponed hearing, Chidi became a man possessed. The private investigator, a thorough professional named Akin, provided daily updates with photos and reports. He documented Tun staying overnight at Amara's mother's house where she and the children were living. He photographed them together at expensive restaurants, shopping in Lekki, attending parties as a couple, all while Amara was still legally married to Chidi and claiming to be a victim of his alleged financial crimes. The forensic audit was proceeding, though Chidi wasn't privy to the details. But Emeka had heard through the legal grapevine that the auditors were finding significant irregularities in Tun's accounts, transactions that couldn't be explained, money that had been moved and hidden. But Amara and Tun weren't idle either. 3 days before the hearing, Chidi received a visit from 2 men who claimed to be business associates of Tun's. They cornered him outside his hotel, their message clear despite the polite words: drop the case, accept the divorce terms, disappear from Lagos, or there would be consequences. What kind of consequences? Chidi had asked, though he knew the answer. The larger man had smiled without warmth. The kind where things happen. Bad things. Maybe to you. Maybe to people you care about. Accidents happen all the time in Lagos, you know. A man could be crossing the street and get hit by a car. Or a fire could start in a hotel. These things happen. It was a direct threat, an attempt at intimidation. But after everything Chidi had been through, after having a gun pointed at him and being publicly accused of crimes he didn't commit, these men just made him angry. Tell Tun that I'm not going anywhere. Tell him that when I'm done, he'll be the one leaving Lagos, probably in handcuffs. The men had left, but Chidi knew the threat was real. He started varying his routes, being more aware of his surroundings, even staying with Obinna for a few nights when he felt particularly vulnerable. The level of danger his former partner and wife were willing to embrace was terrifying, but it also revealed their desperation. They were scared of what might come out in the hearing. 2 days before the hearing, Chidi received an unexpected call from Nkechi. Despite her betrayal, despite her role in the trap, she was crying on the other end of the line. "Brother Chidi, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Her words tumbled out in a rush. "Amara told me if I didn't help her, she would destroy me. She knows things about my past, things that could ruin my life. She threatened me, blackmailed me into setting you up. But I can't do this anymore. What she's doing to those children, what she's planning, it's evil." Chidi wanted to hang up, wanted nothing to do with another one of Amara's schemes. But something in Nkechi's voice sounded genuine, truly broken. What is she planning? If the hearing doesn't go her way, she's going to disappear with the children. Tund has been setting up offshore accounts. They have passports ready, tickets to Dubai. They'll take Kelechi and Adiz and you'll never see them again. Nkechi's voice cracked. "I can't let her do that. I'll testify against her if you need me to. I'll tell the judge everything, about the trap, about the planning, about how long the affair has really been going on. She's my sister, but this has gone too far." Chidi's blood ran cold. International parental abduction. It happened, especially to wealthy people who had resources and connections. If Amara got those children out of Nigeria before the custody issues were resolved, it could take years to get them back, if ever. Will you really testify? Chidi asked. Or is this another trap? I swear on my mother's life, it's not a trap. I'll be at the courthouse tomorrow. I'll give a statement to your lawyer. Whatever you need. She paused. I know you have no reason to trust me. But please, Chidi, don't let her take those children away from you. They need their father. After the call ended, Chidi sat in silence, weighing the risk. Trusting Kechi again could be walking into another trap. But if she was telling the truth about the planned abduction, he needed her testimony. And the detail about the offshore accounts and Dubai, that was specific enough to be verified. He called Emeka, who was skeptical but agreed to meet with Nkechi. And then Chidi called Akin, the private investigator, with new instructions: find out if Tund had been setting up offshore accounts, if there were plane tickets purchased, if there was any evidence of planned international travel for Amara and the children. The night before the hearing, Chidi couldn't sleep. He lay in Obina's spare room, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how his life had become a nightmare of betrayal layered upon betrayal, violence threatened and enacted, corruption and conspiracy. He thought about his children, about Kelechi's innocent question, "You didn't do bad things, right?" And about Adi's confusion. He thought about Judge Adeyemi, about that chance encounter that might save his life or might mean nothing at all. And he thought about Amara, the woman he'd loved for 15 years, the mother of his children, and wondered how love could curdle into such poisonous hatred. What had changed her? Had it been gradual, or had she always been capable of this cruelty and he'd just been too blind to see it? His phone buzzed with a text from Akin, confirmed. 3 tickets to Dubai, first class, departing 3 days after the hearing. Booked under false names but matched to Amara, Tund, and family. Also found evidence of $2 million transferred to a Dubai bank last week. They're definitely planning to run. Chidi forwarded the message to Emeka with a single word: tomorrow. Tomorrow, everything would be decided. Tomorrow, the truth would either set him free or bury him completely. Tomorrow, he would stand before Judge Adeyemi and lay out everything: the betrayal, the conspiracy, the financial crimes, the threats, the planned abduction. And tomorrow, his children's future would be determined by 12 hours of testimony, evidence, and legal arguments. He finally fell asleep just before dawn, his dreams haunted by the image of his children disappearing into a crowd at the airport, calling for him while he ran and ran but could never reach them. The final hearing is next. Will Chidi get justice? Will Amara and Tund get away with it? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the conclusion. Comment below your predictions, and share this video with anyone who loves courtroom justice stories. Where are you watching from? The Lagos High Court was packed, the air thick with anticipation and the smell of nervous sweat. Chidi sat at the plaintiff's table with barrister Emeka, watching as Amara and Tund entered together, their high-powered legal team surrounding them like a shield. Amara looked immaculate in an expensive burgundy dress and geli, playing the part of the dignified wronged wife. Tund wore a perfectly tailored suit, projecting confidence and respectability. They were actors on a stage, and they'd rehearsed their roles carefully. This is it, the moment of truth. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself in court? Hit like if you're nervous for Chidi, and comment where you're watching from. Judge Adeyemi entered, and everyone rose. She looked regal in her judicial robes, her face an unreadable mask of professional neutrality. But when her eyes briefly met Chidi's, he thought he saw something, not favoritism, but a recognition of shared humanity, of the man who'd stopped to help a stranger in her moment of need. Be seated, she commanded, and the hearing began. Amara's lawyer, a sharp-tongued woman named Barrister Ifeoma Obi, went first. She painted a vivid picture of Chidi as a man who'd stolen from his own company, who'd become violent and unstable when caught, who'd broken into his former partner's home and threatened physical harm. She presented the police reports, the financial documents, the forged ones, and character witnesses who testified to Chidi's alleged angry outbursts and erratic behavior. Your Honor, Barrister Obi concluded, her voice ringing with false righteousness, Mr. Okonkwo is a danger to himself and others. My client lives in fear for her safety and the safety of her children. She asks this court to grant her full custody, to protect these innocent children from a man who has shown himself to be criminally irresponsible and violently unstable. Chidi's hands clenched under the table. Everything she'd said was a lie, but it was a well-constructed lie, presented with evidence that looked convincing if you didn't know the truth beneath it. Then it was Emeka's turn. He stood slowly, gathering his papers, and when he spoke, his voice was calm but carried the weight of righteous anger. Your Honor, what we have here is not a case of a violent, unstable man. What we have is a carefully orchestrated conspiracy to commit fraud, perjury, and parental alienation. The defense will present evidence that Mrs. Okonkwo and Mr. Bakare have been engaged in an extramarital affair for over 6 months, during which time they systematically plotted to destroy my client financially and personally. He presented the evidence methodically, the photos from Tun's safe showing the real financial records. The forged signatures analyzed by a handwriting expert who testified they were clearly not Chidi's work. The emails between Amara and Tun discussing their plans in explicit detail. The private investigators' photos showing them living together as a couple while Amara claimed to be a traumatized, separated wife. But the most dramatic moment came when Emeka called Nkechi to the stand. Amara's face went white as her sister walked to the witness box, refusing to meet her eyes. "Miss Nkechi, please tell the court about your role in the events of 2 weeks ago," Emeka prompted. Nkechi's voice shook, but she told the truth. All of it. How Amara had blackmailed her into setting the trap. How she'd fed Chidi false information to lure him to Tun's house. How Amara and Tun had planned to use his illegal entry as the final nail in his coffin. And most damningly, how she'd overheard them discussing their plan to flee to Dubai with the children if the hearing didn't go their way. "They have tickets purchased for 3 days from now," Nkechi said, tears streaming down her face. "They were going to take Kelechi and Adiz to Dubai and never come back. They have money hidden in offshore accounts, and they were going to disappear where Nigerian courts couldn't reach them." The courtroom erupted. Judge Adeyemi's gavel came down hard, demanding order. Amara was on her feet, screaming that her sister was a liar, that this was all fabricated. Tun sat frozen, his earlier confidence shattered. "Barrister Obi," the judge said icily, "do you have a response to these allegations?" The defense lawyer looked rattled, conferring frantically with her clients. "Your Honor, these are baseless accusations made by a disgruntled family member with an axe to grind." "Then you won't object to my ordering an immediate hold on all international travel for Mrs. Okonkwo and Mr. Bakare?" Judge Adeyemi interrupted. "And you won't object to me ordering the police to investigate these offshore accounts and the alleged tickets to Dubai?" Silence. Barrister Obi had no good answer because there was no good answer. If she objected, it confirmed the truth of the allegations. If she didn't object, it was an admission that there might be something to investigate. "I'm calling a recess," Judge Adeyemi announced. "And I'm ordering both Mrs. Okonkwo and Mr. Bakare to surrender their passports immediately. Court will reconvene in 1 hour." During the recess, the forensic accountant arrived with his preliminary report. Emeka grabbed it and quickly scanned the contents, his eyes widening with each page. When court reconvened, he requested permission to present this new evidence. The accountant testified that he'd found clear evidence of embezzlement, but not by Chidi. Tund had been siphoning money from the company for over a year, carefully doctoring the books to make it appear that Chidi was responsible. The forged signatures matched Tund's handwriting patterns, not Chidi's. And the offshore accounts contained over $3 million in stolen funds, all traceable back to company accounts that Tund had controlled. "In my professional opinion," the accountant concluded, "Mr. Okonkwo is the victim of sophisticated financial fraud. Mr. Bakare is the perpetrator, and based on the email evidence, Mrs. Okonkwo was his willing accomplice." Judge Adeyemi turned her steely gaze on Amara and Tund. "Do either of you wish to testify in your own defense?" Tund's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, clearly advising him to remain silent. But Amara stood, her composure cracking, her voice shrill with desperation. "This is all lies. Chidi is manipulating everyone. He's always been manipulative, always playing the victim. I deserve better than him. I deserve happiness. Tund makes me happy, and we love each other. Why should I be punished for finally finding real love?" It was the worst possible thing she could have said. Judge Adeyemi's expression hardened. "Mrs. Okonkwo, this court is not concerned with your quest for happiness. This court is concerned with the welfare of 2 children who are being used as pawns in a criminal conspiracy. You have admitted, in open court, to an ongoing relationship with Mr. Bakare. Combined with the evidence of financial fraud, planned international parental abduction, and parental alienation, you have demonstrated that you are unfit to have primary custody of these children." Amara collapsed back into her seat, the reality finally crashing down on her. Judge Adeyemi turned to Chidi. "Mr. Okonkwo, you are not without fault. You broke into someone's home, regardless of your justification. That was illegal, and you will face consequences for it. However, I can see that you were a desperate man trying to save his children and prove his innocence. The evidence supports your claims of being the victim of a conspiracy." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the courtroom. "Therefore, I am ruling as follows: full custody of Kelechi and Adiz Okonkwo is awarded to their father, Chidi Okonkwo. Mrs. Amara Okonkwo will have supervised visitation rights, contingent on her cooperation with a psychological evaluation and parenting classes. I am also referring this matter to the Lagos State Police and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission for criminal investigation of Mr. Tunbakare and Mrs. Amara Okonkwo for fraud, embezzlement, forgery, and conspiracy. The gavel came down with finality. Chidi couldn't breathe. He'd won. After everything, the betrayal, the domestic violence, the emotional manipulation, the financial crimes, the threats, he'd actually won. His children would come home. They would be safe. The truth had prevailed. Amara was sobbing, her perfect facade destroyed. Tund was being approached by police officers, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine fear. Their conspiracy had collapsed, and now they would face the consequences of their actions. As the courtroom emptied, Judge Adeyemi called Chidi to approach the bench. Up close, without the formal distance of the court proceedings, she looked tired but satisfied. Mr. Okonkwo, you helped me when I needed it most, expecting nothing in return. That showed me character. But what happened in this courtroom today wasn't about repaying a favor. It was about justice. The evidence was overwhelming, and the truth was clear. Don't ever think you won because of our encounter. I don't, Your Honor, Chidi said honestly. I think I won because you were willing to look past the lies and see the truth. Not every judge would have done that. She smiled faintly. This is my last case before retirement. I'm glad it was one where justice actually prevailed. Take care of those children, Mr. Okonkwo. They've been through enough. 3 weeks later, Chidi stood in his newly rented apartment in Ikoyi, smaller than his old house, but warm and filled with his children's laughter. Kelechi and Adiz were adjusting, slowly healing from the trauma of the past months. They had started therapy, all three of them, working through the betrayal and the pain as a family. The criminal trials for Amara and Tund were progressing. The evidence was so overwhelming that Tund had already taken a plea deal, agreeing to testify against Amara in exchange for a reduced sentence. He would spend 5 years in prison and repay all the stolen money. Amara was fighting the charges, but her lawyers had advised her that she was likely facing prison time as well. The construction company was being restructured, with Chidi as the sole owner. It would take time to rebuild his reputation, to recover financially, but he was doing it honestly, with integrity. One evening, as he tucked his children into bed, Adiz looked up at him with her big, innocent eyes. Daddy, why did Mommy do those bad things? It was a question Chidi had been dreading, one he'd thought about constantly. How do you explain betrayal to a 5-year-old? How do you help your children understand that their mother made terrible choices without destroying their relationship with her entirely? Sometimes, baby girl, people make mistakes. Big mistakes. Your mommy made some very big mistakes because she forgot what was important: family, love, honesty. She let other things, like money and wanting to be happy right now, become more important than doing the right thing. But you did the right thing, Kelechi said from his bed. You fought for us. Yes, I did. Because you and your sister are the most important things in my whole life. I would fight 1,000 battles to keep you safe and with me. Chidi kissed both their foreheads. And you know what? Mommy still loves you, even though she made mistakes. When people do wrong things, they have to face consequences, but that doesn't mean they stop being your mommy. It just means she has to work hard to be better. As he left their room, closing the door softly behind him, Chidi felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in months. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Co-parenting with Amara after everything that had happened would be challenging. Rebuilding his business and his reputation would take years. Helping his children heal from this trauma would require patience and love. But he'd survived. He'd fought against domestic betrayal, infidelity, and a conspiracy designed to destroy him, and he'd won. Not through revenge or cruelty, but through persistence, truth, and one act of kindness toward a stranger who turned out to be exactly who he needed her to be at exactly the right moment. His phone buzzed with a text from Judge Adeyemi, who'd kept in touch. How are the children adjusting? Chidi replied, slowly but surely. Thank you again for everything. Her response came quickly. You earned it. Remember, Mr. Okonkwo, character is revealed in crisis. You passed the test. Live well. That's the best revenge. Chidi smiled. She was right. Living well, raising his children with love and integrity, rebuilding his life on a foundation of truth, that was the best revenge against those who'd tried to destroy him. As he sat on his balcony, looking out over the Lagos skyline, the city's lights twinkling like stars, Chidi Okonkwo realized that sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the greatest transformations. He'd been broken down to nothing and built himself back up, stronger and wiser. His children were safe. The truth had won. And tomorrow, he would wake up and continue building the life he deserved, one act of integrity at a time. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of betrayal, justice, and redemption. If you loved this story, smash that like button and subscribe to Retrio. Continue our channel for more compelling African stories. What was your favorite moment from Chidi's story? Was it when he helped the judge, when the truth came out in court, or when he got his children back? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know where you're watching from. We love hearing from our global audience. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of your own struggles with betrayal, infidelity, or fighting for what's right, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Stories like these remind us that truth and character always prevail in the end, even when the battle seems impossible. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our next powerful story about love, betrayal, revenge, and redemption in modern African relationships. We have more gripping tales coming your way. Before you go, we want to ask, do you believe Chidi showed Amara mercy by not seeking harsher punishment? Or should he have pushed for more? What would you do in his situation? Comment below, we read every single one and your insights help shape our future stories. And remember, if you've experienced domestic betrayal, cheating, or emotional manipulation in your marriage or relationship, you're not alone. Chidi's story shows us that even in our darkest moments, when we hold on to our integrity and fight for truth, justice can prevail. Thank you for watching, for engaging, and for being part of our storytelling community. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, give us a thumbs up if this story moved you, and share it far and wide. Your support helps us continue bringing you these powerful narratives that reflect real struggles and real triumphs in African marriages and relationships. From all of us here, we wish you strength in your own battles, wisdom in your decisions, and the courage to always stand for truth, just like Chidi did. Until next time, stay blessed, stay strong, and remember, your character is your greatest asset. Don't let anyone take that from you. See you in the next story, ***. The End. Epilogue. 6 months after the final court ruling, Chidi Okonkwo stood at the construction site of his company's latest project, a modern housing complex in Lekki. His business was thriving again, having secured several major contracts after his name was cleared. The story of his battle had spread through Lagos business circles, and surprisingly, it had enhanced rather than damaged his reputation. People respected a man who'd fought back against betrayal with truth rather than matching his enemies' corruption. Kelechi and Adiz were flourishing. The therapy had helped, and though they still had complicated feelings about their mother, they were happy, secure, and knew without doubt that their father loved them unconditionally. They saw Amara twice a month under supervision, and while those visits were sometimes difficult, Chidi never spoke badly about her in front of them. He was determined to let them form their own understanding as they grew older. Amara herself had been sentenced to 3 years in prison for fraud and conspiracy, with 2 years suspended. She would serve 1 year and then be on probation. The reality of her actions had finally broken through her denial, and she'd written Chidi a letter, not asking for forgiveness, but acknowledging the pain she'd caused and expressing hope that one day, her children might understand she'd lost her way but never stopped loving them. Chidi had kept the letter but hadn't responded. Some wounds needed time, and some relationships couldn't be rebuilt. But he'd made peace with it. The anger that had consumed him during those dark months had faded, replaced by a quiet satisfaction that justice had been served and his children were where they belonged. Tund Bakare was serving his 5-year sentence in Kirikiri prison. The business community had ostracized him completely, and his reputation was destroyed beyond repair. Chidi felt no joy in this, only a sense that the natural consequences of bad actions had played out as they should. Judge Adeyemi had retired as planned and was now teaching law at the University of Lagos, shaping the next generation of legal minds with her wisdom and her stories of real-world justice. She and Chidi had remained in touch, meeting occasionally for coffee, their relationship having evolved from judge and defendant to something like mutual respect between two people who'd helped each other at crucial moments. "You know what the irony is," she'd said during their last meeting. "If Amara and Tund had simply asked for a divorce, split the assets fairly, and co-parented responsibly, they probably would have gotten most of what they wanted. But greed and cruelty made them overreach. They didn't just want their happiness, they wanted your destruction. And that's what destroyed them instead." Chidi had nodded, understanding the lesson. Revenge is a poison that destroys the person who drinks it. Exactly. You fought back, but you fought with truth and evidence, not with more lies and manipulation. That's why you won, not just in court, but in life. Now, as Chidi watched his workers constructing the new housing complex, he thought about how far he'd come. From the devastating moment of walking in on his wife's betrayal, through the nightmare of false accusations and conspiracy, to the desperate act of breaking into Tund's house, to the random encounter with a woman in an alley who turned out to be his salvation, his life had been a roller coaster of pain and redemption. His phone rang. It was Nkechi, who'd become a genuine ally and friend after her testimony. She'd severed ties with Amara, unable to forgive her sister's manipulation and cruelty, and had thrown herself into being the best aunt she could be to Kelechi and Adiz. Uncle Chidi, she said. She'd started calling him that after everything, a term of respect and affection. I just wanted to let you know I'm bringing the children their favorite jollof rice tonight. Are you still okay with me picking them up from school? Of course. They love their Aunt Nkechi time. Thank you for being there for them. It's the least I can do after everything. Her voice still carried guilt, though Chidi had forgiven her months ago. You gave me a second chance when you had every reason not to. I'll never take that for granted. After hanging up, Chidi stood quietly, letting the sounds of construction wash over him, the sounds of building, creating, moving forward. That's what his life was now. Not dwelling on the betrayal, not seeking further revenge, but building something new and better from the ruins of what had been destroyed. He thought about all the keywords that would describe his story if someone were telling it: domestic betrayal, infidelity in marriage, cheating spouse, revenge story, African marriage drama, co-parenting conflict, emotional manipulation, public disgrace. His life had encompassed all of these painful realities. But it had also become a story of resilience, justice, redemption, and the power of character in crisis. That evening, as he sat with his children eating Aunt Nkechi's jollof rice, listening to them laugh and argue over who got the last piece of plantain, Chidi Okonkwo felt something he hadn't felt in over a year: contentment. Not happiness, that would take more time, but a deep satisfaction that he'd done the right things, fought the right battles, and emerged with his integrity intact and his children by his side. Daddy, Adiz said, rice on her face, when I grow up, I want to be brave like you. Chidi smiled, pulling her close. You already are, baby girl. You already are. And as the Lego sun set over his new home, over his rebuilding life, over his healing family, Chidi understood that sometimes the universe puts obstacles in your path not to destroy you, but to reveal what you're truly made of. He'd been tested in fire and emerged as refined gold. The woman crying for help in that alley had been his judge in more ways than one. She'd judged his character, his heart, his worthiness. And by that random act of compassion, done with no expectation of reward, he'd saved not just her in that moment, but ultimately himself and his children. Some would call it karma. Others would call it divine intervention. Chidi called it proof that in a world full of betrayal and manipulation, kindness and truth still had power. Still mattered. Still won. And that was a lesson worth every painful step of the journey. End of story. Thank you once again for experiencing this powerful tale with us. If you made it all the way to the end, you're the real MVP. Drop a comment letting us know you finished the whole story, and share your biggest takeaway. Don't forget that subscribe button. We have so many more incredible African stories of love, betrayal, justice, and redemption coming your way. Where are you watching from? Let us know. Like, share, and we'll see you in the next story.